To the east of Omaha Beach in Normandy, France, is the Valley of the Hatchets, cut from the landscape over thousands of years by a small stream that would bring pilgrimage and even saints to this quiet corner of rural France. All brought to an end in June 1944 when an Allied bomb struck the chapel that is much of the focus of this video. The story begins in the 10th century with a monk named Simeon. He would travel from his home in Sicily to Normandy to gain the support of the Duke of Normandy, even surviving pirate attacks on the River Nile on the way, but his feet had not fared so well. Bathing his feet in a spring, he was said to have been miraculously healed. Along comes the Middle Ages, and Normandy was hit by malaria. It became known as the trembling due to one of its side effects. It was carried by mosquitoes that lived in the many marshes in the area. Once bitten, a debilitating cold sets in, causing uncontrollable shivering, hence trembling, followed by high temperatures and eventually a deep sleep that many would not wake from. The ones that did survive were unlikely to reach old age. For those that did survive, the symptoms usually returned many months or years later. Even today, malaria exists, and prompt diagnosis and specialist treatment is essential for recovery. Cases are even rising, with around 300 million cases a year, and around 600,000 of those do not survive. It was one of the many unpleasant ways to perish at the time, and if you did manage to get your hands on medicine, that would probably kill you too. Saints would flourish, and as I showed you at the St. Clair fountain just down the road, saints that promise miraculous healing were especially popular. Enter Saint Simeon. Shortly after Simeon passed away and he became a saint, the story travelled back to Normandy where the miracle happened. A chapel was built high up on the cliffs to offer sanctuary to the sick, with people drinking or bathing in the nearby spring. It became very popular and saw thousands of people coming for its healing powers every year. Sadly, by the 13th century, the cliff it stood on had eroded and the original chapel fell into the sea. But with the blessing of the king in 1261, a new chapel was built, it too falling victim to coastal erosion. In the 19th century, the building that you see today was built by a wealthy local family, but this time further inland. In comparison to many religious buildings in Normandy, it is extremely modest, but then again, so is the small town it belonged to. Although things like malaria became less common, it continued to be a popular pilgrimage site until it became one of the many victims of the Normandy invasion. On the 6th of June 1944, a bomb would strike the northwestern corner of the building. Although the building was destroyed, Mass continues to be held here on occasion. Sadly, with a vast amount of reconstruction work required in Normandy, this small chapel was overlooked. The ruin standing as a poignant reminder to not only the beliefs of bygone times and the fight to survive ancient ailments, but the fight to free France from the grasp of Nazi Germany. The church is of limestone construction, with dressed limestone features around doorways, windows, corners, and other areas that required higher quality masonry. This is very typical in the region with the abundance of limestone. The rougher stone between the dressed stone was once lime rendered to give a more uniform appearance and hide the cheaper undressed stone. Some of this still remains. For strength, the outer walls are ringed with buttresses. The majority of the windows are of a Gothic design, narrow and tall with a sharp pointed arch at the top. They are generally referred to as lancet windows. The main facade of the church that faces south is home to the main entrance, with a segmented shallow archway. Segmented meaning that the arch is less than 180 degrees and does not follow the same path as the vertical supports. It is also home to the only circular window, in Latin an oculus meaning eye, also typically Gothic. It was once segmented in a rose-type design and possibly housed stained glass. The top of the gable end is a bell base surmounted by a cross. There was once a smaller cross at the peak of the northern gable, but this has now disappeared. The interior was also rendered, but to a higher standard. To the southern end of the church there would have been an altar, and behind that the remains of a shallow niche that once housed a statue of Saint Simeon, now preserved in the village church. To the right side of the niche is a doorway that may once have led to a vestry, also destroyed by the bombing. The roof, now long gone, would also have been made from stone.